Torchers for the first segment. Then I'm going to welcome up co-offensive coordinator and assistant head coach Ben Brown. We'll find out what that means. That co stuff usually means one person nods their head and the other says everything. Then defensive coordinator first year, Randy Moore will be here. Then the last segment, Randy will be back, and Brook Lister, who's the director of operations for One Holland, will join us to talk about not just what's going on Monday nights, but what they're doing for home football games and other happenings at Barleycorn. So, and by the way, registration box right here. We're going to be giving away random draw at the very end, 2 Barleycorns T-shirts along with gift cards, and we're going to do a little trivia for a Cooper Mini football helmet. But let's start and talk about where we are tonight. Practice is underway, but Randy, I want to take you back to last year, a really good season. You guys wind up 12-3. I know you probably disappointed, obviously, from the state final where you had to feel like, hey, we were in it, we made a lot of mistakes. But I think a lot of times people look and you've got a lot of guys back. I think 16 of 22 starters return. So everybody's saying what? Well, they got there last year. They certainly can get there this year, and you can. But how difficult is it when suddenly maybe you snuck up on a few folks last year, but this year everybody's looking at your team and saying they might be the prohibitive favorite? How difficult does that make it, especially in the preseason heading into week number 1?
Well, I think that's always the biggest concern coming into a season. When you have as much success, and we got so many kids returning from last year, and going into the off season, that's the one thing our coaching staff talked about was how would our kids come in, how would they respond to the off season, and would they come in complacent? And I can tell you, this is one of the best off seasons we've had. Our kids have been locked in, so the fear of us coming in complacent and feeling entitled really isn't there as far as the coaching staff feels. But it's always a concern. And then you really look at it, and, last year, like you said, we really, everyone was talking about Highlands, everyone was talking about Bowling Green and some of these other schools. So we were under the radar. This year, we're not going to be under the radar. So we know we're going to get everybody's best game, and we talk about that almost every day at practice, that we got to give it our best because everyone's going to be gunning for us.
Well, you look back to last year, too, and, I mean, when you lose to Highlands 58-51 in a low-scoring game during the regular season, but then you go to Fort Thomas and you win 17-15, a game where both teams had chances to win, but you guys prevailed in what was a state semifinal game, and then you go down to Lexington, and you could have beaten Bowling Green. I was there, I saw it. I mean, you didn't. But what is the mindset that you as coaches took, obviously finishing really strong in the offseason? What was your first messages to this team during the workouts and now that practice has begun? And I'm sure there are some senior leaders, the guys who are back. My guess is they've kind of taken the rest of the team and said, okay, we were 1 away last year. Here's what it's going to take to finish it off this year.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, when we played those better teams last year and we went into the Bowling Greens and really the Southwestern and that, we struggled up front, and a lot of that came down to the strength and the size, and we knew that we had to make our offseason a big part of it, and our kids had to get stronger, and they had to get quicker and bigger. And these kids did a tremendous job, and a lot of these kids did a lot of stuff on their own. We had multiple kids, there's probably 20-plus that was going to gyms on their own to get workouts on days that we weren't working out. So I think we all saw what we need to do to get to that level. And the biggest thing is to get bigger, get stronger. The focus is there, and the talent's there. You look at us athletically, we're as athletic as any team in the state. But it all starts up in the trenches, and it starts with strength. And football's all about strength. And that's an area that we had to improve on. And I think, we were able to do that this offseason.
Well, speaking of the offseason, let me ask you, I know and I think this is more prevalent for public high schools. It's cyclical. I mean, you're only as good as your classes and your upper class in many cases. But I know you guys, when you held the camps, and I know this is youth, but when you win, everybody wants to be a part of a winning program. And I think you guys saw that. Talk about just some of the numbers that you've seen at your football camps, and with, I think that you want kids to be on the, be in the stands on Friday nights and saying, I can't wait till I get to Cooper High School. The privates kind of have an easier time, I think, of doing that. It's different at the public school level, but you got to be feeling great with the numbers you're seeing at Cooper.
Yeah, we do. And, I think what people forget is we're still a pretty young program. I mean, we just finished year 16, going on 17, and those first 6 to 8 years, we were trying to build a program ourselves. We were trying to build traditions. We were trying to build, our program up. And I think, in a lot of ways, what kind of went by the wayside is us building that relationship with our youth program and getting those guys bought in. And, over the last 4 to 5 years, we've, Coach Beckett has been an integral part of that. And then, Coach Nate Johnson and Adam Begley down there, we've built a great relationship, and they've really been selling our program. We've been trying to sell their program, and we're starting to really reap the benefits of that, those kids coming up. In the years past, we would lose some of those kids that were in our Union Jags because that relationship wasn't there, and we were losing them to some other schools. Well, we're getting those kids now. We started our youth program about 3 years ago, or our youth camp 3 or 4 years ago. We started it, under the lights. I think the first year we had 50 or 60 kids there. Now we're up to about 160 this year. So, the hard work that people's putting in behind the scenes and the commitment from our youth program is really starting to pay off at the high school level.
Well, let me ask you about some other things in the off-season, if you will, the preseason. Now you're getting ready for 2 scrimmages. But first there's, of course, 7-on-7s. And you hear people talk, and that's easy. You got to remember that's skill guys, which you're loaded with good skill guys. But at last check, you don't win games if you don't have guys up front. So I know a lot of teams that are undefeated during the 7-on-7s, but suddenly when the real games start, it changes a little bit. But talk about 7-on-7s, and then you're at Christian Academy in Louisville, kickoff 7 o'clock this Friday for scrimmage 1, and then a little closer going to Independence to take on Simon Kenton the following Friday night at 7 o'clock. 7-on-7s, what did you take away from those? And what's your philosophy? You've got 2 scrimmages, and then you start the regular season. Different coaches have different thought processes about scrimmages. What is yours?
Well, going into 7-on-7, we do 3 or 4 of those a year, and we don't really put any stock into those at all. The biggest reason that we do those 7-on-7s is A, it gives our kids an opportunity to compete against someone else, and B, it allows us to see a different style of offense, some different routes on offense, some different coverages on defense, and just some different kids. So, we don't put a whole lot into that, but I will tell you, our kids, they went out and competed, and, they did a pretty good job during that. So we're happy with where we're at after our 7-on-7s. As far as our scrimmages go, this scrimmage against Cal, last year, our first scrimmage, we didn't feel like we got a lot out of that first scrimmage, so we thought it was very important to get a scrimmage where we could really measure where we were as a program. And we're playing one of the best teams in the state. Multiple state champion team, was state champs last year. They have a lot of kids returning, so we're going to get a good feel for where we're at. But it's going to be a very controlled scrimmage. I think we both feel like we just want to come in, we want to compete, be able to work on some things. It's not going to be a win-loss. We're not going to play down and distance and that. We're just going to – it's going to be very static. We're just going to run 10 plays, let our defense run 10 plays. And the biggest thing is we just want to see where we are against a really good football team and see what we need to improve on come week 1.
All right. So we'll talk specifically in our last segment. You're going to be back up. I'll ask you about some things on the offensive side and defensive side of the ball. You certainly have a lot of key returnees. But we'll take a little respite here, just a couple minutes, and I'll welcome up co-offensive coordinator, assistant head coach Ben Brown, who's in his 5th year, and Randy Moore, the first-year defensive coordinator. I'd like to hear from guys on both sides of the ball. Couple quick notes, the home opener and the season opener, August 23rd, 7:30 kickoff against Bardstown. So mark your calendar. I'm sure you already have done that. But nonetheless, and big news coming from Barleycorns, for Cooper home games this year. They're going to stay open late on Friday nights, and more details coming there. They're going to have a special menu as well for all the Jaguar fans who come here on Friday nights, so we'll touch on that with Brook Lister. But we'll take a quick timeout, and we'll continue with offensive coordinator, co-offensive coordinator, Ben Brown, and Randy Moore, the defensive coordinator. This is the inaugural Cooper football show with Jaguars coach Randy Borchers from the Florence Barleycorns. Jaguars coach Randy Borchers, of course, will be my guest each and every week. And we do this Mondays. It'll flip to 6:45 beginning next week. So we'll talk about this Friday's scrimmage at Christian Academy in Louisville, and then we'll get ready for the next one at Simon Kenton. I'm joined up here now by assistant head coach and co-offensive coordinator, which means you nod a lot, I presume. He would be Ben Brown. Ben, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. And then first-year defensive coordinator, a veteran of college football, and probably the only guy besides one of my sons who's a big Iowa football fan, Randy Moore. Am I correct? You went to Iowa, right?
Yes, I did. Thank
you. All right, so let's Ben, I'll start with you. How did you arrive at the co-defensive offensive coordinator, and what does that mean?
What you said, I nod a lot. You know what I mean? No. Honestly, it started to come together probably 2 years ago when I became the offensive line coach. Myself and Coach Borchers, there's a lot of times we just sit down and we're like, all right, let's just hash through this, see what we're going to do, put a game plan together, look at their defense, kind of scout out what they're going to do, and we kind of put things together like that. So it's just weird. Like, ever since we've been together, it just clicks. Like, I kind of know what he's thinking. I know what he wants to get accomplished. He knows what I'm thinking, and it just kind of rolls with it. And the good thing about Coach Borchers is that, of course, he likes things his way, but he also takes suggestions. So he's like, hey, I was like, hey, man, I saw it this way. How did you see it? And we kind of come together. There's no, like, you know, of course, he's the head coach, so his way is going to be the way we go. But he definitely looks at suggestions. He definitely takes advice, looks at things that I see, and we just kind of really work well together.
I've been trying to tell my wife that for almost 30 years, right? Like, take suggestions, and it's all good.
Yeah.
So before I get to Randy, it's got to make you feel good and having a playbook where you have so many weapons. An experienced, really talented quarterback, receivers, you can run the football, you got guys up front. I mean, what does that do for you? Obviously, makes much more versatile, keeps defenses on edge at bay, and I'm sure Randy would tell you he doesn't want to try and stop Cooper, so it's a good thing he doesn't have to. But
no.
What a luxury that must be for you guys.
Oh, it's incredible. There's sometimes we sit in practice, we'll look at each other, and we'll just shake our heads like these dudes are incredible. I mean, it's very rare that you get two guys on the outside, a running back, a quarterback that is a Division I prospect, two guys on the outside are Division I prospects, a running back that's a Division I prospect. I mean, it's very rare that you get all of that to come together on top of the guys that sit behind them. I mean, you have guys behind them that at every other school up here would start. I mean, you got guys up here that may not get as much clock, but would start at any other school in this area. So it is definitely a luxury to have. And those guys all complement each other. They're all, I mean, none of them wants to be the hero. None of them wants to be the star. They all work together. They understand what the common goal is. And that's been the coolest part about watching us practice. Like, we were sitting today, we rolled maybe 7 or 8 different receivers in, and we didn't miss a beat. I mean, did not miss a beat. Those kids rolled in, did what they were supposed to do, knew exactly what they were supposed to do. So, yeah, it's absolutely a luxury. It's fun to coach, and it's fun to see their passion for being great. So that's definitely cool.
Randy, before we get to the defensive side of the ball, I got to ask you, you spent a lot of years in college football. You were at Hope College, Otterbein, Hiram College, where you were the head coach, and I know you kind of got back to this area. What made you decide that, you know, you were kind of done with college and you wanted to still coach and be a high school coach?
Sure. When my wife got an opportunity to come down and work at Fort Thomas.
No, just make sure you hold it up close to you. You're good.
And we wanted to get closer to relatives. So my kids are in Columbus, my brother's in Nashville, my mother and father-in-law were in Knoxville area, so this was really close for us. And when we came here, I talked to Thomas Moore about a job, and I met with Coach Borchers. And the minute I met with Coach Borchers and we sat in his office and talked, our philosophies were very similar. We believe in the same things. He's established a tremendous program, and the discipline and the love for the kids was something that I wanted to be a part of.
Well, let me ask you about the defense, because you can have all the flash that you won on offense, but you look back to last year and, you know, Highlands got Cooper 58-51 during the regular season in a shoot, literally up and down, but you looked at the postseason, you looked at the playoffs, and your defense, first at Scott County and then 17-15 at Highlands, coming up with some big stops. And how important, obviously, you know, people will say defense wins championships. So for you, being a position coach last year, now the coordinator this year, how different will the Cooper defense look, and what are some elements that you intend to bring to the Jaguars defense?
Well, first off, if we can stop the offense once or twice in practice, we're feeling pretty good. All right, and I don't like to lose to my wife in a game of cards, but I had to adjust that mentality when I faced Cam and Coach's philosophy and Isaiah and everybody. But, you know, the defense is not going to be a lot different. We were very fortunate. We had a defense coordinator last year that, again, allowed us opportunity to interject our thoughts and things. And when we got into that playoff run, we worked together and we collaborated and really put together basically a lot of the same defense that we run this year. There's not very much difference. We've got very talented kids. If we can run to the football, force some turnovers, we're going to be just a little bit more aggressive with our line movements and things. But, you know, again, we don't want to be crazy. These kids are great athletes. They can run, they can get to the football, and we'll be able to stop people at that point.
Well, let me ask you guys as coordinators, I always wonder this at the college and NFL levels too. You know, coordinators, you obviously want sustained drives, keep the defense off the field, right? You want 3 and outs to get the offense back on the field. How much conversation between you guys? And is it, you know, there's a lot of love between coaches, I know, but there's also times when you may not like, what are we doing here? He may say, what are we doing on offense? Does that happen? I mean, are there times on the sidelines when you come to each other and go, what are you doing out there?
I'll tell you this is the one thing that we'll say, and you'll probably hear this more than anything, is it's stay in our lane. So we like when they're doing their thing, then that's their thing, and we have trust and belief in what they're doing. Coach Moore does a tremendous job of making adjustments. He does a tremendous job of finding things and making things and scheme changes. Like, that is his forte. That is what he does. So when it comes to that, he does his thing. Myself, Coach Borges, we do our thing. Now we'll say different things. Like, he'll ask us different questions. Like, hey, man, like, when you run that, what are you looking at? And then we'll be like, okay, cool, this is what we look at. Or on the other hand, like, if he's got a defensive thing, we're like, okay, what's that coverage look like for you when we're running this? And they'll give suggestions and things like that. So we kind of work together in that sense. But, yeah, he does his thing, we do ours, and it's a beautiful thing.
Somebody's probably jotting down a note. That's a great sideline sign to hold up to fans. Stay in your lane. I don't know. Coaches might be thinking that, right? I can say that. You guys can't. Now let me ask you this. So from your standpoint, you mentioned about trying to stop these guys in practice. I got to believe that from a preparation standpoint, there can't be any offense that you would fear going against any more than the one you try to stop when you go up against them in practice. How well does that prepare your defense?
Well, it definitely prepares our defense very well. You go into every game, you respect the opponent. Obviously, we want to stop the opponent, but we respect what they do. But again, we're facing some of the best athletes in northern Kentucky and all of Kentucky every day. So, you know, we know where our strengths are at. We know where our weaknesses are at because they can get exposed every day in practice. And I echo what Ben said. You know, Randy runs the program, and his philosophy, we melt in. And there'll be times when I'll talk to Ben and I'll say, Ben, what do you think? We just ran our goal line defense the other day, and I came in and I said, Ben, what'd you think of that? How did that look? Did it make sense? And I said the same thing to Coach. So Ben hit the nail on the head. We collaborate a lot.
See, that's going to be one thing I think we should try to do, and we'll make this a contest where people can win. Try to put down as many phrases of coach speak throughout the course of the show as we can, right? Because, I mean, being a journalist and being, you know, on radio and in print, when coaches give you that, like, you know, telling you how difficult the opponent is when they're 0-8 and losing by 50 points a game, come on now. Yeah. Now, Ben, let me ask you, though, how cool is it to coach your son?
No.
I mean, obviously, not on your side of the ball specifically, but Randy's coaching. But, I mean, to have your son be a part of last year and now this year, I know that's got to make it extra special.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's fun to watch because he does an amazing job at what he does. He really takes it seriously. And the fact that he's kind of bought in to what Randy preaches, which is focus on the little things and doing all the things that we need to do to be successful. It's cool to see that growth. And it's cool that I'm on the other side of the ball, so I don't have to coach him. I don't have to do anything like that. It's cool to watch him grow on his own in that sense of being coached by other people and being able to do those things. So it's a lot of fun. It's really enjoyable.
Now, that's absolutely true. Could be a little coach speak in there, too, because I coached my son in college, and I was his head coach, his defensive coordinator, and the defensive back coach, and he was a defensive back. So Ben has a great relationship with his son. His son does everything that we ask him. But for me, it was very difficult at times, establishing that role. And sometimes you just have to tell your son, go ask someone else.
Yeah.
Or, with my son being his defensive back coach, I used to have to say to the coaches, hey, go coach Matt up because he listens to you better than he listens to me.
Well, you just gave me a good idea. Maybe we'll start a fine system for coach speak. Like if you got to drop something in, if you say those things.
Absolutely.
But no, I'll be talking to you guys plenty during the season. Ben Brown, the co-offensive coordinator, assistant head coach. Randy Moore, defensive coordinator for Cooper. Thanks to both of you for stopping up tonight. And a couple reminders real quick. Make sure you take good care of your servers here. Brandy, the GM, Sandy, night number 1, manager. Thanks to Barleycorns as always. And we've got, if you haven't registered, stop over here, put your name in. We'll be doing some giveaways in about 15 or so minutes. So coming up next, we'll welcome up Brook Lister, who's the director of operations for One Holland. And we'll welcome Coach Borchers back and talk a little bit more about plans for the fall. When we continue here, the inaugural Cooper Football Show with Jaguars coach Randy Borchers. All right, welcome back to the Florence Barleycorns for the first Cooper Football Show with Jaguars coach Randy Borchers. And it's my pleasure to also welcome up Brook Lister, who is the director of operations for One Holland, which I think means he never sleeps, because I should just ask him, how many restaurants do you operate? Are you the director of? Do you know the total number?
Yeah, I'm 4. That's it.
Okay, so the Barleycorns then, right?
I run all the Barleycorns.
Well,
yes, sir.
I will have to toss this out, and I'll ask Randy the question, but I have to ask you from a staff perspective. Understand, Shane Beckett, so we're taking some Barleycorns employees are dropping questions in, and one of them is clearly visually impaired because she has asked, are any of the Cooper football coaches single? Again, to which I say, I go to CEI, which is the Cincinnati Eye Institute, frequently. Maybe you should stop by there, but do you know the answer to that?
Depends on who it is. I could be.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep, there you go. Wait, I thought there was an anniversary coming up. Isn't that accurate?
Yep. Could be 24. Could be. We'll see how this week goes, I guess.
I didn't sign up to be on this panel.
Yeah. See, welcome to the show, Brook.
Yeah, whoa.
No, but one of the things about Barleycorns, I think, and certainly about the community is the people, Barleycorns has got that neighborhood community feel, no matter where it is here, the 5 Mile over in Lakeside Park, Cold Spring, and the Barleycorns Brew House, which is cool. If you haven't been there, check it out down in Wilder. But you are connected personally now to the Cooper High School community.
I am, yes. We've been here for 5 years. We moved in from Oklahoma, and my daughter is an incoming sophomore on the cheerleading team. So we're very excited about this year. Cooper's been great to us, and we just love the community and how everybody comes together and supports everything. I mean, like a night like tonight, this is awesome to see.
And a reminder, this is a dine to donate, so 10% of all the food sales, alcohol excluded from 5 to close, go back to Cooper High School. So that's a good thing. We appreciate that from Barleycorns as well. And Brook is available to rent for a golf outing. He's got about a 6 or 7 handicap. So if you're struggling in your group and need somebody, right? Everything's got a price, doesn't it?
Yeah, we can talk.
Okay, there you go.
We can talk.
So let's talk about this idea, though, this concept. And Randy, I know Shane Beckett was one, but obviously you guys had such a great year, and Cooper High School has such an outstanding following that this, we think this is really going to be a fun night leading into what is Monday Night Football, and doing this every Monday. And Barleycorns jumped on board, and it's a really cool thing.
Yeah, it is, and this is something that you always have big ideals, but to be able to follow through with something. And this is something we've talked about for the last 4 or 5 years. Like, man, this would be really cool to do a coaching show. And that's about all we did, was just kind of talk with it. And then this, with all the success we had this past season, we're like, man, we really got to make this work. And Shane reached out and talked with Brook and Barleycorns, and they jumped on it. And we kind of hit the ground running. We got some, who's done this for multiple years, Billy that works in radio. So, we got a lot of high-quality people, professionals to operate this. So it's not just a small rinky-dink operation. We got people that know what they're doing, and we're expecting this to be a really big hit for our community.
And, Brooke, when they brought this idea to you and Amy, the marketing person for One Holland and Barleycorns, what was your initial reaction? And I know you've done, I think, 3 Dine to Donate since the fall of last year. I think they've gone really well. But what's the thought process behind Barleycorns wanting to be a part of this?
Well, Barleycorns has been around for 50 years. This is our 50-year anniversary. And what better way than to just connect with the community and get back out there and be able to give back. Even if it's 10%, we're giving back something, In the restaurant industry, there's not a lot of great margins. So, nights like tonight, we don't make a whole lot of money, but we are giving back, connecting with the community, and, obviously I'm a little biased because I bought a bunch of cheer uniforms and stuff. So, we're just making sure that that we do this thing right for the team and for the community.
And if at a Cooper home game you're lucky enough to be one of the 6 people that'll fit in the press box, you'll be fed by Barleycorns this year. And this is, what's that disclaimer they run? This does not reflect the comments of Cooper High School. This is from me. Boone County Schools, take a look and build a damn bigger press box, please, because it doesn't hold enough people, which is, how about a double D? You can put a second level on that, right? But Barleycorns is kind enough to come out and feed the press box. But, Randy, I want to ask you, when you kind of stand back at practices and watch the talent that you have, and it's hard to because you're trying to game plan and scheme for opponents, but there has to be a time when you kind of sit back and go, wow, like we have a lot of talented kids, from Cam O'Hara to Austin Alexander to Isaiah Johnson. It's a lengthy list, but you can pass it, run it, you can pretty much do whatever you want. Not all the time. But do you ever find yourself at practice going, this is a pretty special group of kids?
Yeah, but, I think as coaches, you're so focused and driven on just getting better all the time. And, I'll be honest with you, I don't think I really sat back and realized how special of a group of kids we had and how special last year was until after the season was over. And it's just such a grind. When you start up in January, it's the weights, and then once you get to summer, you kind of hit the ground running. So, it is a special group, and Ben kind of mentioned it earlier. There's times that our kids come out and they do something, you're like, wow, that was, that I wouldn't have thrown that. Cam makes some throws that you're like, I can't believe he threw that, but he completes it, and you're like, well, I can't really say much because most high school kids can't do that. So, what we try to do is just let our kids, be themselves and go play and not try to overthink it. We've talked about this as a coaching staff. Worst thing that can happen is for us to screw this up as coaches. Just let our kids go play, put them in the right position, and just let them go make plays.
One other thing that, coaches talk a lot of times about, we're not really playing an opponent, we're playing against ourselves. We think we're good enough on most Friday nights. Do you have that same philosophy to just take care of what we control and we'll be okay?
Yeah, and our biggest thing, you talk about coaches talk all the time, and since day one, our biggest philosophy has been take care of the little things, do the little things. And if we can do the little things, run to the football, right pursuit angles, sprint out of the thing, not jump off sides. If we can take care of the little things, we got enough kids around us, we got enough players around us that the big things are going to take care of themselves.
Brooke, I know you're a big sports fan, and I know, speaking of a guy who doesn't participate in coach speak, you're an Oklahoma State fan, and Mike Gundy, who's an absolute piece of work, and is anytime he gets to the podium, you want to listen. But how excited were you last year watching what Cooper did and then going into this season knowing that they have the potential to maybe take the final step and bring home the school's first state football championship?
Yeah, it's strange. I I live back. I think about the glory days. Those kids coming out of the locker room. I played basketball in high school and in college. I wasn't out on the football field, but it's the same feeling. I get the same feeling watching these kids compete as I had, several years ago, just a few years ago. But I get that same feeling. The butterflies in my stomach, the hairs on my arms, the back of my neck stand up. When you guys played the intro earlier, man, I was ready to go. I was ready to go. So, but yeah. Oh, and Mike Gundy is the man.
Well, there's no coach speak there. In any way. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, if you're here tonight at Barleycorns and you're getting ready to order, trust me, if you like a little spice, get the hot and fiery rib appetizer. Trust me, you can't go wrong. You might need a few beverages to wash it down. It's outstanding. Limited time, right? Limited time offer, LTO, as they say in the business.
LTO, baby.
Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, and you can vouch. We were given a sample, and it's outstanding.
We were given a sample, and when we're done with the show tonight, that's going to be what I order.
There you go. Let me ask you, Randy, a couple other football questions just about this year. When you look at your schedule, and you're obviously 5A and your district games, there have to me, when I look at the schedule, and you don't want to obviously overlook anyone, but there are 3 games that, to me, on the regular season schedule, jump off the page. One, naturally, is the other Boone County school and rival, Ryle, which this has to be the year, right? Second one is Highlands, because they'll be a formidable, and in your district, they're probably the other one. And I like the one that, I know you're off the week 11, if you will, before the postseason, but Dixie Heights. And Dixie Heights always big offensive front, and kind of when you look at those 3, and you're not downplaying any of the others, but those have to be 3 critical opponents where you're really going to learn a lot about your football team.
Yeah, and that goes back to what I was saying earlier about this offseason. One of the biggest things that we focused on was their physicality and getting stronger in that. And when you mention all 3 of those teams are teams that are big, strong, physical football teams, and we're, that hasn't been our best matchups in the past. So, we're going to see where we are against those teams, see if, kind of the focus and the commitment that we put into the offseason, if it pays off.
Yeah, and I want to, be remiss, when you look at games the past few years that Cooper hasn't won, don't you kind of feel like it's typically lost at the line of scrimmage? I mean, because you've got, and look, there are mistakes you make, an interception here, a fumble there, but really, you've got skill guys with anybody. It's really probably going to come down, and I'd be remiss, too, how difficult has scheduling become? Because, in the state of Kentucky, it's hard to go over to Greater Cincinnati and play anybody because a lot of big leagues, they don't have a lot of open weeks. But once you start winning, how much more difficult is it to find opponents?
Yeah, so, we started the 25-26 schedule this past fall, really at the end of the fall, early January, and, it was a lot more difficult. 4 or 5 years ago when we were scheduling and we were kind of in a valley, not playing great football, we had our pick on who we wanted to play. I mean, people were banging down our doors to play them. It's a little harder to get phone calls back right now or responses. So it's an obstacle right now, but it's a good obstacle to have. You want to be at the top, and you want teams to fear you and not want to play you. So we have our schedule done for 25-26, and it's going to be a very difficult schedule. And hopefully we lose a lot after this year, but we feel like we're finally getting our program to that point where we can sustain it, and we're not going to take a huge step back. So, we want to be able to play the best, teams in the state to see where we are at.
Brook, I want to ask you a couple other questions about Barleycorns. Obviously, we're doing this on Monday nights, and reminder, starting next Monday, it'll start at 6:45. It'll lead in during the regular season of Monday Night Football. But talk a little bit about the plans at Barleycorns in the fall and things that you guys have going on outside of just, daily food, outstanding drink specials, and anything else.
Right. Yeah, so starting the first home game, which is 8:23, we are going to, every home game, we're going to stay open late. Yeah, there you go. We're going to stay open later for all the Jaguars to come in after the game. So we will have a special menu. It will be a limited menu, and we'll stay open as long as everybody's rolling in. We'll keep the bar open even later than the kitchen, so we'll kind of play that by ear, but that's something we decided to do after we heard that we were closing too early. So now we're not going to close too early, and I better not see Coach's car anywhere else.
Be here every Friday.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, too, that the guy working the audio here, he happens to work for iHeartMedia, but he's a quarterback's coach this year at Cooper, but a former quarterback for the Cooper Jaguars. Give it up for Billy Prickett, who's over here, and was an outstanding quarterback in his own right. Correct me if I'm wrong, quarterback the year after the first state final. Is that accurate?
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah,
okay.
he went, actually the year he was there, we went to the semifinals and lost to Pulaski.
Okay, so Billy will be here every week and handling the audio. And Shane Beckett, who's the director of football operations, and Shane does a great job and will not be happy with us if we don't do anything that we were supposed to do, right? He will admonish us. He keeps us in line. He's very well organized. But it takes a lot of people. It may not seem like it, but it takes a lot of people to put something like this together. And again, I just want to mention Brook, Amy, Brandy, Sandy, and the entire staff here at the Florence Barleycorns. Make sure you take good care of them, not just tonight, but each and every Monday night, because without their generosity of opening their doors and allowing us to do this here, and tell a friend. On X, if you want to follow, it's at Cooper Football, formerly Twitter, of course. But anything and everything, including season passes, not just to football, but to the fall sports and other sports, you can find it there at Cooper Football. Updates on there. We will also have video from each of these shows. It'll be posted to YouTube a little bit later each week. But if you want to hear it live, you need to come here on Monday nights and hang out with us. So we'll be doing that each and every Monday. But coming up, don't forget, top of the hour, we're going to talk a little fall sports at Cooper High School. And Randy, I'd be remiss, you're also the athletic director. And obviously, Cooper High School has enjoyed really good success in a lot of sports. I mean, the basketball team's been outstanding. Obviously, the girls have an tremendous run of going to state under Justin Holdhouse. Timmy Sullivan's done a really nice job with the boys. But even in the fall, Cooper High School has a very successful athletics program, and we want to make sure we accentuate some of that starting tonight as well.
Absolutely. And, you know, when people look at Cooper High School, they're starting to look at our athletic programs. And, you know, we've had multiple, you know, people come into the school this summer and they want to go to Cooper now because of our athletic programs, because of the success that we've had. And, you know, we've been very fortunate to hire some really good coaches that come in, they do their job, and they do a really good job at it. And, you know, we got some good athletes, but we also have some really good coaches that have done a tremendous job with our kids.
All right. Well, again, I want to thank everybody tonight, from Randy to Brook, Ben Brown, Randy Moore, and most especially everybody for coming out tonight, because without you folks in the house, it wouldn't be fun.